All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, as you may know, yesterday on Rising, we interviewed Tara Reade about her time working as an aide to Joe Biden. Tara alleges that then Senator Biden sexually assaulted her in the early 90s when she was a young staffer. Here's what she told us, and warning, this may be upsetting for some.
We were in a semi-private place. It wasn't completely private. He was at first talking to someone. They went away, and then he said, "Come here." And then when I gave him the gym bag, it happened all in one motion almost. And he had me against the wall. And then his hands were down my skirt and up my skirt. And I was wearing, I wasn't wearing tights or anything. And he then, with his hand, went from there and entered me with his hand, and as he was trying to kiss me and saying things to me. So when I tell you what happened, it's hard because everything kind of happened at once, but there were incremental parts to it. Mm-hmm. And meaning he was trying to kiss me and I was pulling away. And what I remember of that time is feeling really shocked, surprised, because there was no real conversation right beforehand. There was no precursor. It just happened. And then when he did that, I was obviously pulling away. And he pulled back and said, "Come on, man, I heard you liked me." Something to that effect. And that's what kind of jolted me. Like I was trying to think what I did wrong to bring that on to me. And then he looked angry and irritated with me. And that's when I knew it was really, I was in a very difficult position.
Now, as with so many of these situations, there are no witnesses. It's a classic he said, she said, which makes it, of course, incredibly hard to confirm or deny, and Hill TV has been unable to independently verify her story. That doesn't mean she has no corroboration. Significantly, she did tell several people at the time. And the basic facts surrounding her story, including that she did, in fact, work with Biden at the time, appear to be accurate. But the question and objection I keep hearing raised is this one. Why now? Why come in at the 11th hour when Joe Biden is on the verge of clinching the Democratic nomination? The question, of course, is meant to undermine the claim and cast it as politically motivated. The more Red Scare conspiracy-minded have taken that even one step further, going full Russian agent on Tara based on a Russia-friendly blog post that she wrote, as if her views on Russia remotely relate to Joe Biden's actions on that day in the 90s, as if it's not far more preposterous to imagine that Tara Reade is some Kremlin agent than that a powerful man committed an egregious act. But the story of why now is actually incredibly telling. It says everything about how our elite institutions routinely cover for powerful men. It says everything about why so many women don't come forward at all. Because according to Tara and according to Ryan Grimm's reporting, Tara has been trying to come forward for months. Tara initially came forward in a limited fashion after Lucy Flores wrote an op-ed claiming that Joe Biden made her deeply uncomfortable at an event when he sniffed her hair and kissed the back of her head. Now, naturally, Tara was attacked and her character smeared, which gave her justifiable pause about sharing the full nature of her allegations. But she did decide to persist anyway and tell her full story, including her allegation of sexual assault. And so she did something very logical. She took it to the organization that was supposed to be set up to assist cases exactly like hers, Time's Up. Now, Time's Up Legal Defense Fund says on their website, this fund helps workers connect with lawyers and bring cases of workplace sexual harassment and related retaliation, regardless of industry, rank, or role. But somehow, that blanket statement included an unstated loophole that Tara's claim fell right through. According to Tara, and again according to Ryan's reporting, after initial interest, Time's Up walked away, claiming that taking on a claim against a candidate for office could jeopardize their nonprofit status. An incredibly conservative reading of the law that was contradicted by other lawyers and would mean that Time's Up is effectively giving a free pass to every powerful man who happens to also be a candidate for office. Oh, and there's one more thing that you should probably know. Time's Up's PR is handled by SKD Knickerbocker, which happens to be run by Joe Biden's campaign manager, Anita Dunn. You see, there's a powerful club here in this town, and you're not in it, and neither is Tara. Tara says she tried to get her story out in other ways, too. She wrote to Elizabeth Warren's office and Kamala Harris as well. She heard nothing back from Kamala and got a standard form letter back from Warren. Two women who, of course, heavily ran on their gender and what their election would represent for women. And then there's the media. Tara wasn't exactly hard to find. After Ryan's article and Katie's interview, I reached out to her separately on Twitter. I heard back within minutes. I'll be honest, I didn't want Rising to be the first on-camera interview for Tara, and I know from speaking with Katie that she didn't want to be the first podcast interview with Tara. Obviously, Katie and I are both seen as friendly to Bernie, which means in the mainstream world that we can't be trusted. I thought Tara deserved a full vetting and a fair hearing from a mainstream outlet. But as I reached out to mainstream folks that I know to see if they were interested in breaking this bombshell story, I heard back crickets. Nothing. No one seemed to want to touch it. Tara says she too had tried to get a hearing from mainstream journalists only to come up empty. Now ask yourself, if a claim like this had been made against Bernie Sanders or even Donald Trump or another media villain like Edward Snowden, do you think that the accuser would have had any trouble getting press? Do you think it would fall to independent and alternative news to break the story if a woman who worked with Bernie in the 90s made a credible claim of sexual assault? Do you think CNN and MSNBC would bury their heads in the sand? Every reporter in this town would be breaking down their door to be the first to tell that story. Coverage would be wall to wall. Remember when Elizabeth Warren claimed Bernie was a secret sexist and these establishment types disgustingly co-opted the Believe Women hashtag to take Warren's side in her highly unlikely claim? Well, where are all those folks now? I believe Tara is trending on Twitter and all the blue checks and gender warriors are nowhere to be found. How incredibly convenient. Their principles seem to have abandoned them now that it threatens their access to the Biden campaign and ability to grift off their coziness and proximity to power. We've, of course, seen this pattern time and time again, whether it was NBC shutting down Ronan Farrow and his Harvey Weinstein reporting. Remember how, according to Ronan, Hillary's aide threatened his access if he didn't drop the story? Or Amy Robach explaining on a hot mic that she had everything on the Epstein story, but that ABC was afraid they'd lose their Will and Kate Royals access because of Epstein's connection to Prince Andrew. They'll happily trash the dude who's stockpiling Purell or the random lawyer on Twitter who put out an objectionable tweet. They'll gladly provide a venue for allegations against the outsiders upon whom their status and access do not depend. But they've got to be dragged kicking and screaming to do their job when it comes to their own ideological and class brethren. So look, Tara's claim against Joe Biden should be scrutinized. It should be fully vetted, and people can decide for themselves what they think. But drop the why now. Because the truth is, she's been doing everything she could think of to be heard. This is just the first time anyone bothered to listen. Sagar, this is something we've been talking about on the show for a while. Yeah. The way the media works to cover up for powerful men, who they decide to feature and go after and who they don't. And it is remarkable that we end up sort of at the center of one of these same stories.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you know, Brett Kavanaugh couldn't sneeze on somebody in 1982 without it ending up in the New Yorker as a credible allegation. And then this woman comes forward, talks to us for 20 minutes, talks to Katie Halper, has at least, talked to somebody. It deserves vetting from a multi-million-dollar news organization.
And by the way,
you think?
Who broke the Kavanaugh story?
Yeah,
Ryan Grimm.
Yeah,
They found him credible enough to dig in on that story. But on this story, when he talks about, time's up, taking a pass, they pretend that they don't see it or hear it.
That's how they've always looked at Ryan's reporting, which is only whenever it's convenient will they pick it up. But when Pete Buttigieg fakes black endorsements, no, you can't talk about that.
Can't talk about that. That's not important enough for us.
Because he's an actual honest actor. And then this demonstrates that the fact that she's not on CNN or MSNBC, I mean, look, just close your eyes. What if this was Donald Trump? You know exactly what it would be. Right?
Imagine if it was Bernie.
Imagine if it was Bernie.
We had news cycle after news cycle, and somebody pointed this out on Twitter about whether Bernie said something secretly in a private conversation to Elizabeth Warren. That garnered wall-to-wall news coverage. I haven't seen one mainstream outlet pick it up yet.
I just don't believe that Time's Up would not take it if it was Bernie or if it was a Republican. I just don't believe them. And then that's the thing is we know that they use all their intertwined, interconnected, things, interconnected power structures like Time's Up and SKD Knickerbocker and the co-chair of the Biden campaign, communications director for the Obama White House. I think she even worked in the Weinstein case in some capacity. There you go. That's what this whole thing is, an interconnected web of lies. And it's all created in order to keep out whoever needs to be kept out and then bubble up the stories that need to be in order to take out the people that they think are deserving to be taken out.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Harvey Weinstein doesn't deserve to be taken out, but it took a long time for those stories to bubble up outside of those power centers for a reason. That's
right.
Actually more of what the Weinstein story is, not just how he victimized hundreds of women, but also about how an entire Hollywood power structure was created in order to keep him safe. And like you said, all we probably want is parody for claims, like I said, leveled against Brett Kavanaugh, who sneezed on somebody, and that gets the Ronan Farrow treatment in the New Yorker, and Tara Reade is out here talking to Katie Halper and us on we don't have the same resources as they do.
Right.
Why don't you treat them the same way? Investigate. If it's not true, okay, find out. If it is true, find that out too.
But you basically have to force them to do their job. You have to put it in their face and make them pay attention to it, because otherwise, if we didn't interview Tara, if Katie didn't interview Tara, if Ryan didn't do his story, then they would just pretend like Tara didn't exist, which is exactly what was happening. And so to take this back to why women don't come forward and why is she doing this now? This was what my Twitter timeline was. Well, why now? Why at this late date when Joe Biden is on the verge of winning the nomination? Well, why now? It's because it's the first time that anyone bothered to actually listen to her. She wanted to tell this story for months, but this town was invested in plugging their ears and pretending that they couldn't hear or see what she was trying to say.
Just one last note on this. The fact that she reached out to the Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren, these were the chief, impeach Kavanaugh people, jumped on fake news reports in order to justify that. All the Believe Women talk, all that. Yeah, pretty form letter. Okay?
Yeah.
That tells you everything you need to know about how empty their gender
Yet to hear from Alyssa Milano or Kirsten Gillibrand or any of these people on any of this.
These people are fake.
We'll keep you posted. All right, Soccer, looking forward to your radar. That's next.